Don't make sense. I'm about to break into the yellow space. Up, 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 up. Realize it could be like out in the ocean. Realize it could be out in the ocean, sucker. No, that's money. Huh? Oh, I see. Just kidding. This if you're talking about this crate right here, Tucker, this is money. That was. No. Purple make you lose money. Oh, that's where it is. A taken? What's a taken? Imagine only having one token, imagine. Yeah, you have one. Bruh, you just said multiple. You can use it. Yeah, you have one. So, it's so bad. It literally just does this. It's so bad. Yeah, so does this one. I almost died to it earlier because I tried breaking into a base. Yeah, it is. Every once an hour. Yeah, Tucker. No, I never did. Well, yeah, you got lucky, first off. It could spawn out in the ocean, you realize that, right? Birds is... Still, it could spawn on the very corner of the map. It was probably this money crate I collected. It was probably the money crate I collected. Where? Show me. Oh yeah, Tucker, I'll show you. No, Tucker, I'll drive. Just tell me. Just get on. Tell me where. Whoa, I'm really heavy. Peach, while I'm a clump of metal. This boat is like pure speed. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Isn't it like that thing poking out of the water? Oh yeah, that's probably just an ice like area. Wait, is there a new reset or you... Oh, I see you. I see your smoke pile coming from behind of you. From the beginning. I see it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. You need to get another token. You need to play for 1 more hour. Or we switch. Tucker, you have 800 million, right? Get 800 million for the later done now. Tucker, whatever you do not don't go to the paradise. Paradise and Quartz. Chill, you're a regular person. No, I got you. Same. That's why I'm saying we should switch. Don't want a size changer. Eh. Honestly, I haven't played this game in so long. I forgot like how it. I forgot if it just magically appears or it falls out. Now I'm on the roof. Yeah, I'm on the roof. I'm on our side. Yeah, I'm jumping from our side. I know. Yes, sir. I would be rich, sir. Oh yes, we can just magically teleport to the nether. I love you. Fire! I have a dance floor. Come to the bunker games and you'll find a. SpongeBob raps? Hold up, I want to go back to that. Why did I see SpongeBob rap songs? That's an ad. No, I know Casino, but we're not watching the rest of that. I already know the song. I don't want to watch it. SpongeBob freestyles? There's a lot of stuff. It's just now. SpongeBob dancing. Dancing with jellyfish song. Is this it? Yeah! I like how you just were not even talking for the entire. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I love myself some SpongeBob. Connor, Tucker, don't go look at your color game. Aw, only 1.1 billion. I don't know how high up that was. I was just playing. I was just trying to find a SpongeBob song. Now I have $1 billion. I wish this was DRL. Don't care. That was really offensive. That's really offensive. I want more. I don't want to buy $3 billion. I want more for there. We need to cars now. I need to have a very epic gamer game and I need to play this game. Huh? I'm coming to Jelly World, don't worry. I'm coming to the Minecraft Nether. Same. I bought buy the barricade walls. Wait, finish Underworld. I bought it. I completed the Underworld. I completed the Nether. I bought a statue. Literally. Why the laser got a flamethrower?
Smoothie.
Huh? What? Secret? Oh yeah, I already got that. Tucker, you find an extra dropper on the first floor. No, I didn't say that. Yeah, you go. But you lose your token. Buttons? That's good. You said it right. You said it right. It's like the gold thing. The cheapest dropper now is 500 million. The most expensive is a billion. Yeah, I said that. And they're like, no. Yeah, we should switch roles now. No, we switch roles when we've completed the game, Tucker. We haven't completed the game. Yeah, you wanted to. Yo, I'm like, come to the paradise and come and look at this dropper. It looks like I'm summoning something. No, it doesn't. Cause I've tried it before. If I have, I would be surprised with it. You're just wasting 100 million. It just gives you an achievement. Which I've already gotten the badge, so I don't need it. But then you complete the underworld, but you still have to buy at least 3 things. It should, honestly. But it should, no, you know what it should do? It shouldn't just price it down to 100 million. It should add all of them up so you don't have to buy them all and you save up.
Hey, John.
So it should be at least like 160 million. Doctor, where are you? Need it paradise. Let's go to paradise. Go. Go. Paradise Island is over here. Why? I want to show you my I'm summoning something. I want to show you something.
How's the smoothie? I got the sesame bagel, not, please turn the light straight. Sesame bagel, not toasted. Do you want butter on it?
No. I have $1 billion. I feel like a rich. Why did I just consider this gift? You know what? I'm gonna save this more. I don't know. Look at this more. Go to the first floor. Look at why is this a more? It's the best floor, Tucker. No, this is actually more. Oh yeah. Yes, the wind turbine is a dropper. Look at my droppers. Yeah, I know the droppers. It sounds like a dropper. No, I literally right corner. It's just high. I think I'm back in your. What's your ankles real quick? I'm jumping off a floating island. No, I don't want to know. Go behind your base and go to that island. Go to that island. No question when you look at the side of our base, you see a naked man swimming. I gotta quickly bush camp. Goes to a tree. He'll never see this one coming. He doesn't know it's me. I do have an pair of strangers. Yeah. After we go to the beach, come on, come here. Get him jump in the water with me. Here. Touch my palms. They give you love. Push it. Thank you. Good Connor touched them.
Oh, yes. Oh, look at you. Getting ready to lay one? They'll always lay in the... Oh. Not getting broody, are you? Not getting broody. Look at this. See this egg? It's got a little bit of a little spot on it. I always thought that's cool. I like that. You can tell the difference between the eggs if you look, one being lighter than the other, but all being about the same size. They're all large eggs. There's barred rock feathers. But yeah, those eggs look pretty good. These are the barred rock eggs, and these are the golden sex-link eggs. Super nutrient dense, farm fresh eggs. We feed them scratch grains all the time, which contain flaxseed. That means that their eggs have omega-3 fatty acids in them as well. Uh-oh. Don't do it. Don't do it. Here, you. These little golden sex-link birds are so affectionate. It's amazing. They don't mind being handled. They'll sit in your lap for long periods of time. You pick them up with one hand. Uh-oh. Not right now. Not on camera. I always say this, but I like to point out these are bantam. Oh, look, big girl came around. Ponzi. Barred rocks don't like to be pet as much. You can see she kind of pulls away. This one, I'm just gonna stick around. Oh, look at you. What are you doing? Picking up my buttons on my pants. Yeah. They're really beautiful. And these chickens are a mix of the Rhode Island Red, which is a classic American chicken breed. It goes back hundreds of years. And the Rhode Island Red Dwarf, mini white variety, the Bantam, and you get this reliably golden colored female chick, which is why you want to get the sex lynx bird. Is, you know for sure you've got a hen, as opposed to the other types of chicks you might get that not as easy to tell if you got a hen. Like these barred rocks, they were just black little chicks. And when I got them, I didn't realize that if they have a white spot on their head, they're probably a rooster. And yep, we got a rooster. And that rooster had to go back to the farm, had to go to the farm. Go to good use. But we couldn't have it here. They're pecking at the buttons on my pants. They love the buttons if I get down in that crouching position. Yeah, they've got a nice expansive area back here that they can roam. That's covered from the top. It's got canopy. So it's nice and shaded. It's actually nice and cool. That's just why we all love to spend time back here. We're constantly feeding them from this area. You can see the worm farm still operational. Here's the red brick road to Chickenville. Give them a nice additional waterer. We put waterers all over just so, you know, it also helps in case you forget to fill one. You know, you have many there for them to fall back to. This roosting bar, which is just a pressure treated 2x2, 1x1, sorry, that I got at the store. Look at these chairs. Just walked over my foot. Yeah, this is what they do. They just stand at your feet. But this has been an excellent roosting bar. I just simply rested it between the crook and this Dracaena, this tree-formed Dracaena that I've got here. Dracaena has been a great, really great structure plant, especially back here in the chicken coop. It doesn't produce anything really edible for them, but it does produce organic matter for chop and drop. You can see how many branches have grown, and you can just thin those out perpetually really on this variety and just drop them on the ground, and rest assured the chicks will turn that into soil. They will do all the work from there. So we can't keep enough organic stuff on the ground here to keep them busy, to be honest. You can see there's bits of organic stuff here, there, and everywhere, but you still see a lot of sand through there. They love to scratch around, and we've been adding some of the oak that we harvested around, and I need to do that, add some larger logs. I'll show you some of that oak we've got stored from the trimming job I did up front. When I had the oak tree trimmed, it was so gigantic, they estimated they took 9,000 pounds of weight out of the tree. But we kept most of the wood, and which actually reduced the cost of having it trimmed. We had to have it trimmed before this hurricane season. For sure, it was already, we had gotten lucky way too many times, and I was like, I mean, if we don't bite the bullet here and get it done, we're going to be in trouble. That sucker's going to tip over or something worse. And so anyway, got it all trimmed, but now we have a bunch of wood like this. Now the interesting curved pieces, this is a really small piece, but I've got giant pieces that are like 2 feet wide chunks of oak, which will last for 15 years, really, as a solid piece of wood. And I'm going to place some of those around back here. They'll produce nice little perching areas, but then also it produces a place for the bugs to get some hiding place. And you know, the chickens are going to love finding all the bugs, so you want to have some area for the bugs to be able to survive, because if you don't, I believe every bug will be just wiped out systematically by these birds. They are relentless. They will never stop until every bug has been found and eaten. Which is great because it's not that buggy on the ground here ever anymore, but it starts to be less interesting for them. I think what we want to produce is more or less a better balance back here in the chicken coop, but one of the things we got to do is continuously feed it chop and drop and organics. They're getting the organics from the chickens, obviously pooping everywhere, but the chop and drop, the organic matter, that's what they'll scratch at and tear apart and turn into soil. They're natural composting machines, the chickens are. Now this has been, the croton has been an amazing add to my yard. This is a variety that is, I think, a little bit uncommon, let's say. Odd phrase, a little bit uncommon, but it is uncommon in my opinion. So I got it from a cutting from a friend probably 20 years ago, not longer, and propagated, put it in a few places. Now it's fairly large, old, but it's a great shade piece and it makes it look really cool. There's so much color in the croton. This one will grow well in the shade, which is another bonus of some of the varieties of croton. You can see the Song of India. Dracaena is also a solid performer. I'm tree forming this one. That's something I like to do to Dracaena, is to tree form it into just a classic tree canopy shape. You can trim it heavily then. See, I'm letting some of it come over this way to provide some shade. And planted another one. This pigeon pea, little pigeon pea, is just peck every bit of it that can be tagged by those chickens. They jump up and snap it off. They love the leaves so much. But it's surviving through. I'm not going to help it too much more, but I was thinking maybe I would just put this one on a pole, like I've got that one on a pole, and I've got that one on a pole. I need to put this one on a pole to save it from the chickens, and then it should grow up and produce pigeon peas. The squirrels have been really tagging the pigeon peas lately, which is irritating. We're gonna have so many pigeon peas that I think it'll be hard for them to get them all. It's really the approach. I mean, I could do something about the squirrels, but I'd just rather not do that. But you can see the pigeon pea has grown lots of new green growth. It'll bloom again with flowers, and we'll have, I think, a very harvest. This is sugar cane. You can see the chickens peck at it, but it grows through it, and that makes it a winner for this area. It's really kind of interesting in a way, because this is my hay. I'll show you what I mean. Just gonna tear off some leaves, and that's my method. I just pull down. All right, and that gives you a handful of sugarcane leaves in no time, which make great chop and drop, certainly. But also makes great bunny hay. You see they've got mulberry branches in there. We're always keeping them well fed with greens from the yard. But yeah, right now they're mostly just laying down. In fact, I wonder if I'll even let Penelope down. Penelope, do you want to get down? I know what she's going to do. She's going to go right over and sleep under that. What do you think, Stream? Should I let her down? Or wait until later tonight? It's almost, I feel like she'd prefer to be up there where she gets circulation. Now we have these plastic like covers that make it soft on their feet, and they almost never use them. They go right under the grate every time. So this area is slowly but surely starting to do something. And I'm absolutely going for the jungle vibe here, packed in plants. But there's some interesting ones here. Here's a couple varieties of Dracaena. I've got the ever-bearing mulberry here and there. That's just sticks I jammed in over the last months. And it's starting to come in now. Oh, this St. Augustine grass is an absolute vegetable to chickens. And when the runners, they very lightly root usually into things. They can just be pulled out, and then look at the vegetable that you get here. Now, I'll show you what I mean about them being vegetables with these chickens. They see it, they can see, they saw it in my hand. Okay, just gonna break it into a couple pieces. All right, and there we have it. Huh? Oh, he pulled her. She pulled it out of my hand. Here's the rest of the chickens just realizing they're missing out on something. What? Now, if you hold it for them, they can really get leverage and bite into it with their beak and rip off little parts. See how she's got a huge piece, and they'll shake their head to try to break it into a small piece. But when you hold it, it makes it easy for them to eat, so they love this. That's why I held the fig for them. Yeah, so you get the idea. I'll throw the rest in there. Yeah, so things I used to find to be a common annoyance, which would be like a little St. Augustine grass growing up where I didn't really want it, is now, oh, look, some vegetables. And that's been a cool part of the whole transition here. The more things we have growing in here, the better, just generally speaking. So I'm going to start seeding this area with pigeon peas. Don't really intend the pigeon peas to make it there, but I want them to establish roots and start putting sugars down into the soil and start establishing the kind of system that's required for soil health. And you could chop them down once they get to a size, or let them grow where they can grow, or just let them grow until they die out on their own. But you start to create the situation where life can exist as long as you keep it watered. Because without the water, without the irrigation system, and we're going to go into that topic now, without the irrigation system, all this is for naught because it will simply fry. So efficient irrigation is important, which is why I just had my whole system updated. And I did have a professional come do it. I wanted to revamp this backyard, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. But little things like the head I have back here, which waters the fig tree and the lemongrass, sugarcane, pigeon pea, with the right head on it, not a big head, you know, high water usage, but one that more or less just gets it out to the door, as opposed to the one I had on it, which would get it out to way beyond and was wasting a ton of water. Good example of that. The right sprinkler head on this location is incredibly important, but he was able to reduce the overall pressure usage on the system and then get it to the point where it could hit everywhere, which now just about everything is getting watered. I actually have one more thing I need to do, which is to come back and move the sprinkler in that corner just forward a bit so it gets in this corner. Other than that, though, everything is getting a lot of water. And that actually does get a little bit in the system now, but I want it to get guaranteed water. I did have a sprinkler back here from a bygone era. This was all grass before I moved here years ago. This was just a big area of grass. So it had sprinklers set up like a big area of grass. Would have all along the edges, down the middle. So I had this one moved, and now it is forward, where it can get a full sweep of there all the way out. And so it's things like that, which, I mean, for me, I've done a lot of sprinkler work in this yard, and it always results in being like a subpar result. And this time it is nearly perfect result. Here's the one that I'm gonna move forward. It does get this area, but these bananas are blocking, and I don't really want to trim them back heavily or have to worry about it. But this corner is a particularly arid region of my yard. If I get the sprinkler right to about here, it should almost even get some of that stuff back in there, and I think provide a sweep of everything I needed to hit pretty densely. You know, this area is a place where I want to grow other things, but that requires me keeping this sun zone open. You can see all that beautiful sun and how it's now getting back in here. That's a new thing. This was a completely shaded cave of my yard 6 months ago, but I trimmed all of these Dracaena shrubs way down. They were all the way up to the power line, to the comm lines pretty much. And I cleared out this lane of growth, also trimmed this longan tree back a bit. So now I have the ability to grow things here. I have sunlight available. I want to compare that. And this is something I always try to point out to people trying to grow a lot of things in a small space. You know, you only have so much sun. And once things start going, they're going to block that sun out. So, and you do want to get ahead of it before they get too big. So you can see this area still has a little bit of sun. Sun's not fully up yet, but it's still got a little bit of sun. But that sliver of sunlight is pretty narrow. So as that thing sweeps across and gives this area light, it's not getting a ton of light. And why is that? Well, it's because I haven't managed the sunlight lane in my yard yet to restore it. It's just time to do it. And it's not way overdue, but it's time. If I let it go much farther, like, you don't want these two trees closing together. So I'll have to make a little bit of sacrifice on the Tommy Atkins, a little bit of sacrifice on the Edward mango to open that lane up. Also, vigorous grower, the Suriname Cherry. It's trying to get tree-like. It's got some higher branches, so I'm gonna need to trim that back so that it bushes up and grows from the center. By the way, the Suriname Cherry that's on that branch, way up in there, you're never getting it. It's just dropping to the ground. So it's not a practical way to have a cherry tree, to have it be that tall. So very important to trim back. Now this is a Barbados cherry. And I'll show you this one. I'll show you one that I have that's smaller. It's an affordable, good cherry tree I'd recommend everybody have. It's really super high in vitamin C. Once it gets established, it'll grow very readily. This one is a very healthy one, and it's also getting tree-like. Now it's also competing with this chocolate pudding tree, which wants to get gigantic, and I have to deal with this. I have to deal with this before it gets too big. I can deal with this on my own like it is now. If I wait much longer, I'm gonna be hiring somebody to do it, which I don't wanna do. So this whole area is going to be the subject of a Eat Your Backyard longer form video that you should stay tuned for. I'll show you what I do to open up this shade lane. And then we have a nice center area that can go back and forth as the sun transverses, or whatever the word is, the sky. And we're going to be having a lane of light there, a lane of light there, and maximum capability to grow stuff, because it's the power of the sun that's going to get you there. Those yams I was talking about that I'm propagating slips of now inside, those yams are going to need this sun that you see right here now. Without that, although they can grow in the shade a bit, without the sun, you're not going to get the huge yams that you would want. They will actually produce, I think, a lot of vines still in the shade. You'll probably grow up the trees and be beautiful. So, yeah, okay, let's look back on my list. I had so many things planned for the old live stream today. I'm sure I missed some. I tried to go through them in my head. Okay, so we talked about my Japanese yam propagating, the Buddha belly bamboo. We have not. I moved this Buddha belly bamboo back here because I realized it's been hot for far too long. Grew this from a cutting. That's about how you do it. Put a cutting, fresh cutting of Buddha belly bamboo in a pot about that deep and water it. There you go. There's the whole how to grow Buddha belly bamboo tutorial. This one's been sitting in that pot for a long time. 5 years, maybe longer. It's ridiculous. I should have put it down into the ground a long time ago. Just didn't know where. It's purely ornamental. You can harvest the wood, and I have and do, but it's a lot of space for that. My point is, I didn't know where to plant it because I didn't really have a use for it. But not everything needs to be hyper useful, of course. Some things can just be beautiful. But now I kind of have a place where I put stuff like this, and this is back in the chicken pen. Although I like things that dropped fruit, this thing drops leaves like crazy. So actually having it back in the chicken pen and having it drop leaves, the only drawback is these sticks, the bamboo sticks, are very hard to deal with. So that's the update. It does seem to actually be doing better here in the partial sun that it gets in this corner. So that's the Buddha belly update. I may grow some more bamboo in pots this year. That's a pretty easy thing to do, but and enjoyable. The vegetable experiment. So yeah, I had a series called What You Got Growing On, where I was growing many things here. You should go back and check that out if you're interested. Well, over time, it's transitioned into most of the things that have been planted into the yard, and I have a few things like this little moringa growing, or that mulberry, or some dracaena, but mostly I've accomplished the mission of this table. And it's not a great place actually for growing vegetables, because it actually does get too much sun in the summer. So I've decided to go with the experiment. I almost killed all of these plants by not watering them. Oh, Brian, yes, we'll look at the datel pepper. the datil pepper is now part of the lineup here. So here's what I got. The old bell pepper, just green bell pepper like in the grocery store. I do not know if that will do anything useful, but we're gonna try here. That's why it's an experiment. It's got sprinklers near it here. It's got all kinds of things. So we'll see if we can get it to cling to life in some kind of position. These are eggplant, 2 different types of eggplant. And eggplant is something you see people around here. This is the Black Beauty type, which I think is the kind you mostly see in the grocery store around here. And then this is Ichiban type. But they get fairly large, and I know they're really aggressive growers. They can take the heat. So I give these 2 high odds of surviving, even though, like I said, I almost killed them both through not watering them initially. And then I got 3 different types of herbs to grow here. One I know will do well, which is sweet basil. It's a good pick for Florida. Garden sage, which I've had good luck with sage. And then I tried this pineapple sage. It already looks like the leaves are, I mean, this is for not being watered, but it already looks like it's a little tender. Now, grapefruit tree continues to suffer. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do about that besides throw it away probably pretty soon. This is the datil pepper. Certainly a hot pepper. You see it's doing well, it just has been kind of dormant lately. It's certainly in a place where it's protected enough, and now that I look at it, it's watered a bit, but I need to just give it some bunny manure. As a matter of fact, let's do that right now. Let's illustrate the bunny manure experience. I'll tell you what, walk around in the shade makes the difference, my friends. Where is my little shovel? Where is my little shovel? All right, here. Can't find my little shovel, so I'm gonna go with the big shovel. Big shovel works. All right. What a resource to have. Now, how much is the right amount? I'm gonna say that's about it now. Bunny manure. This is also somewhat composted. That's full of bugs. Whoa. That is gnarly. Thing is just writhing with life. Wow. That's almost scary. It's a freaking alien world in this shovel. I don't need to know. I don't need to know. But it's very interesting. All right, so here we go. We're gonna add this whole planet of alien organisms right into it. Here we go, breaking it down. Yep, and by the way, this little cart, even though it's rusting, has been amazing. I use it for everything. It's currently being used as a dirt hauler. In addition to these things, which I planted, I am going to absolutely go full court press on growing a bunch of pigeon peas and roselli. I'm going to get some starts going to both of those, pigeon pea and roselli. I'm going to finish the last few moringa seeds I have, grow those. And also going to get as much lemongrass as I can get going. I harvested a lot of lemongrass seeds this year, and that stuff is just amazing. You know, there's no need to go buy lemongrass seeds. Once you have lemongrass, they produce these gigantic seed pods. So I'll be growing all these. I will revitalize this. Right now, we just have the new mulberry trees sprouting. I mean, look at that. Ever-bearing mulberry. Again, just sticks I pushed in the ground before a rainstorm. How to grow ever-bearing mulberry tree in Florida. Really loose sand, as long as it's watered. Now look at this. This, we were looking at the Barbados Cherry earlier, the more full-size version, which I need to trim back in order to establish that sunshine lane through the center of my food forest here. But this is a very small Barbados Cherry that is already looking very vigorous. You can see how it just looks good for a young Barbados cherry. And it actually was so quick growing that it had produced already we had a bunch of rain, so that helped it, but produced 2 fairly long branches, which didn't suit it. I to be growing over and taking up the space. So I trimmed it back, used that stuff as chop and drop, and it is just looking like it's going to be a champion. And perfect location for it. But that was an inexpensive tree. I mean, you can get, I got that probably less than 15 bucks, 12 bucks, 13, which is an incredible value. I bought 2 of them. Whenever I find steals like that, I always get 2. And it's not that unique, but it's definitely a must-have for any Florida permaculture backyard food forest setup. Mango multiplication. I want to tell you about the shorts that I've been making. So I've been making lots of shorts. It helps get the word out on the channel and drive subscriptions and all that kind of stuff. So I do that, and then I try to point to things that I always talk about, like in these streams and also on the videos that I have. And one of the shorts that I released, it's like 15 seconds with a music track to the back, and then you can create the video content. And it was mango multiplication to show I have doubled, times 2'd my mango capability here in this yard this year, and I couldn't be happier. 3 incredible varieties. So they're all little, but they've all jumped up and produced. All of these dropped all their leaves as they produced these new leaves, like mango trees typically do. And it looks like the new leaves are here to stay, which is a good thing. And you can see this Fairchild mango. It's got the burnt tips. Classic. Don't know you can really do much about that. The reason why they're getting the burnt tips, in my opinion, is because of the salty irrigation right there. And it needs the irrigation, but if it can grow through that effect, like I'm certain it can, just like the Edward mango already had. This one was tortured for years by the water. Now it's up above and going off. Probably stunted its growth a little bit, but I'm going to give it tons of bunny manure its whole life, this Fairchild, so she live up to its claim of being the most delicious mango on earth, quite possibly. This is the Malacca. It's a patio mango, meant to be small but big producer of fruit. Like the sound of that. And this one is the queen of mangoes, the famous Kesar mango. The Kesar mango is called the queen of mangoes in India for its outstanding flavor. You could maybe think of it as a mango that's able to be trimmed and remain small if you stay on top of it, is what I've been told, but, which we certainly will have to, because we don't want electrocuted mangoes. And this is actually a strawberry tree, Jamaican cherry, Muntingia tree, cotton candy tree, that is growing away from the ocean, and it's got about 3 feet of clearance between it and those calm lines. I'm going to trim that down and use it for chop and drop at some point soon, but for now I'm just kind of letting it get established. But that's a tree you don't want to let it get too big before you have to trim it. Okay, let's get back in the shade. Holy mackerel. Man, oh man, I felt like I was inside a convection oven holding on to an overcooked piece of toast. All right. So the irrigation update we talked about. We actually looked at the eggs. We didn't harvest them. We let the bunnies have plenty of greens, but I didn't let one go. I'm going to wait until the evening and give them both a good run. Or right after the rainstorms, whatever comes first. The fencing update. Our fence is gone. It is disintegrated, and this is what happens with wooden fences. I like the look of a wooden fence. Also, the cost of a wooden fence is pretty low, but they get mildewy, they get destroyed, everything gets black mold on it, and just gets eaten to death. And that's what's happening here. If you look at that, you can see the effect of years of being drenched in rain and winds. It's ready for a replace. I had already replaced this. This was fencing I put in, but that I won't have to worry too much about. I'm going to put a door in here so that we can use this to get through as well, but that's not a big change, so I'll have the people that do the rest of the fence do that. But this, from here on down, is nothing but destroyed old fence that's ready to fall to pieces. I've actually had to, at one point, I'll show you over here, I had to put up animal wire, against that fence because it's actually got holes in it. And you can't really see it well from here. So there you go. Hopefully you can see it. In between that and that, there's a hole in the fence, and it's got wire all the way down this extension just to block it, even though it's got open fence panels. So, you know, that's a problem. This thing was in bad shape. It's gotten maximum usage. And what happens with an old fence like this in July in Florida is the hurricane comes and just rips it to pieces, and throws it against everything, and it's a big bummer. So you could also say, well, you get it replaced and it'll still get knocked down. That's possible, certainly, but I like that outcome better than this thing disintegrating and slapping into my house, like has happened one other time where we had an old fence and every fence panel slat was ripped off and slammed into the metal shutter on the window, which reminded us that it was probably a pretty good thing we had a metal shutter on the window. That would have sucked to have the chance of one of those 20 pieces of wood that hit that thing break the window. Anyway, so experience over time. You don't sweat the hurricanes, nothing to get worried about. You get plenty of time to get the heck out of Dodge. Bring what you care about. Don't sweat the details. That's my opinion. But the other thing is be prepared, you know. But be prepared not because of a hurricane. Just be prepared. Be prepared because being prepared is what you are. How about that? How about them apples? And don't forget to hit the like button if you are new on the stream here. That always helps me feel happy inside. And you know how important that is. All right, now we're going to talk about growing Persian mulberries. Not growing everbearing mulberries, which you've already talked a bunch about. Persian mulberry's little cousin, let's say. But, wow, what a great producer of delicious fruit. The Persian mulberry is also a great producer of delicious fruit, and this is the worst example in my yard in that it just gets attacked by bugs all the time. It hasn't been a strong producer of fruit. I don't know why that is exactly. It is right up against these compost bins, so it's certainly in an environment where it's probably got and ammonia-rich manure nutrients getting down onto it and into it, so maybe that's affecting it. I don't know why the bugs are so prolific on it here, but yeah, it doesn't matter. You can see spider webs off the side here. Those are crab spider. No, that's a banana spider. We let those spiders grow to a plumpness, and then we bring a chicken around and we snatch that spider up until that's a good chicken treat. But this was grown from a cutting. Simply took a cutting and submerged it in soil roughly 4 inches deep, kept it watered in partial sun, and wow, it grew just like this. And the cool thing is I've got a bunch more planted, but it's a rather large tree. I want to show you an example of one that's in a pot, and then one that's in the ground that's going off big time. This is also a place where we're going to be able to put a new fence in. That fence I just walked through is wrecked. Oh, look at this highly novel area. There's a lot of wood that we've collected from that live oak, but this is a Persian mulberry that gives you a better idea of what this tree can do. A little over a year old and already doing all of that. Now, it's also apparent this is a rather large tree. It can be a rather large tree. I don't want a rather large tree up against my house, but by the way, anytime I don't want this tree, I simply saw it down and recycle it back into the yard, so it's not a problem. We look at this just like a crop. But I'm going to be trimming this heavily. Now I'm waiting for all of these branches to get to a little bit bigger size so that they have some woodiness. You see it's starting to develop some woodiness here, but I would like to be able to cut it for a cutting probably right here, so I want it to be fairly woody. As you get not too far out, it starts to get a little too green. So I'm not chopping these on purpose because I want to use them as cuttings. They're fairly nice straight sticks and they'll make great cuttings. But just require a little bit more woodiness. I'll trim these lower ones down too, and every time you trim it, you produce, seems like, especially on this one, not on the one in the backyard, but it seems like every time you trim it, you produce more of these giant, delicious mulberries, which really have a raspberry-like flavor to them, in my opinion. I think they're super good. different than everbearing in a lot of ways, larger and more sweet. Look at the beautiful bark it's already got developed on it, and you see all those little root opportunities. Those are all places where roots could grow. Really cool. That's, I think, one of the reasons it's so easy to grow. Now here's one that I planted not that long ago in a pot. Again, same principle. Woody cutting. And you can see there it's trying to grow up from the base. You know, I think maybe as a shrub would be an interesting way, a bush tree, so to speak, would be an interesting way to grow this thing. Probably the right way to grow it. The more branches you have, the more fruit you're going to have. And also the more chop and drop you're going to be able to get from it if you treat it more like that. I'm certainly treating it like that, and couldn't be happier. This one has been relatively untouched by pests, and you can see the full capability of what it can do, the size of it. Look at the size of the leaf. I mean, it's just gigantic. And all the animals love these leaves a lot. Can't believe it. Out here in the sun, it just seems to do better with the pests. I don't know why. This thing gets full sun, and it is using it. It seems to be able to take the full brunt of the Florida sun with no difficulty whatsoever, which is really something to be said about this. This is another short that I put. The funny thing was, I did a quick short showing this tree, and that thing, I came back and looked at it 2 hours later, it had 1,000 views. Holy moly. A lot of interest in the Persian Mulberry. This is the Moringa. Just trying to get enough Moringa trees established where we can start harvesting these leaves. I'm going to do some health experiments where I incorporate the leaves in teas, etc., and see if I have a health change. My health is actually, I think, very good right now, so I wouldn't be looking necessarily to change something that's not going well. It's just to see if it gives even more energy or kind of thing. Look at those leaves, they're just begging to be made into tea. The Moringa leaf is just such an interesting leaf. Multi-leafed. It almost looks as, this is how you'd imagine like a prehistoric plant looking. These potted plants are all examples of things which can take the full fiery brunt of sun that this area gets. Things like the aloe vera. Aloe vera is a terrific plant to grow as a specimen. If you just grow one and let it get huge, they look so cool that way. It's like a yucca. And these are areca palm seeds that fell in there, no doubt, from this areca palm to my right, which we'll talk about in a second. This is a very exotic variety of Frangipani, which did bloom this year. We enjoyed that greatly. I showed that on some of the past live streams, if you're interested in seeing it. But that very exotic type of Frangipani, plumeria, that's what a lot of people call it. This potted plant, though, I've just added things I like that are easy to grow and will take it, and things like this croton, very common type of croton, but wow, so beautiful with the colors. This variegated ivy, and then the variegated ivy, I'm growing up this larger tree form, plumeria, which is full of flowers. And we actually, the person that trimmed our tree, our oak tree, had some coquina rock that he had gotten from his last job. He said, "Hey, do you want it?" And absolutely, I wanted it. So he put it right here. And now this one is so big, I don't know how on earth I'm going to do anything with that one. I'll need like 4 people to lift that thing. It's like building the pyramids of Giza. But these other ones I can definitely move with a little bit of help, even though they're heavy. And I've got to position those back in the yard along with these pieces of wood, which I haven't exactly decided what I'm going to do yet, but that's a lot of resource right there. Each one of these pieces of wood, I mean, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's, you know, well over 60 pounds, maybe even much bigger. Some of the larger pieces could be 80 to 100. This one right here, I don't even know how heavy it is, but it could be a 200-pound piece of wood. It's amazing how dense they are. Now, some of them, I asked, like on this one, to trim it to kind of be like a bench. So some of them I want to have be, what I mean benches, places where you could sit, or places where you could put a potted plant. So yeah, lots of fun here. We got resources. All right, now this is the sugarcane palm, aka areca palm. Beautiful clumping palm tree. Very common in Florida. Import from Madagascar, endangered in Madagascar, as an interesting sub-fact of this plant. In its home country, so to speak, of origin, it is in tough, very, very challenging growing conditions where it grew in Madagascar. Here in Florida, we're perfectly suited for everything it's been developed to do. Like exist in extreme heat, like just and throw out shoots, grow in loose soil. All these kinds of things grow in poor soil. And you can see here, this is from all the mineral spray from this sprinkler right here. The mineral spray on, and it is this sulfur, calcium, and all the rest residue. Kind of looks cool though, I think. But on the newer ones, you can really see why they call it the sugarcane palm, or maybe a bamboo palm would be a better word. Interesting thing is, I'll give you a little story about this. This was a new palm stalk, like this one is now, when we had a hailstorm, and look at what the hail did to it. The hail just like impacted it all over. So this is the only one out of all these that you'll see that has that marking on it, and that's why. But hey, who cares, right? Because you chop that one down, more coming. Now I have one of the most watched videos on Eat Your Backyard is how to stubble your areca palm, and you know, it's something you need to be willing to do, especially in Florida. I stubbled this all the time, meaning prevent it from growing under here, and it is just fine to do things like this. See it? I mean, you can trim it out lower than that, certainly, but where you're removing significant quantity of it, all these fronds are going back into chop and drop, but you remove a significant quantity of it, and it just seems to come back even stronger. And sometimes you'll have really tall growth, you don't want it, just trim that whole thing off. Oh, I just, on the way out, look at this injury. Ouch. Man, I hope the sharks don't smell that today. But look at this. Look at all those little palm nuts. Those will all taste like, just about like a banana married with a aloe vera. Tastes like that. And when they start coming in, if you let the seed pods grow, they just keep coming in. This is one of those edible palms that will just produce so much growth. You wouldn't believe it. I'm talking about so much fruit, you wouldn't believe it. Now, whether you want to eat 100 of those, I don't know. I don't really. But this is another area, and this is one of the topics on my to-do list. This is edge concept of permaculture, utilizing edge spaces. This is another edge space which I'm utilizing now with all different types of cuttings and plants that you see throughout the yard, including that more rare croton that I showed earlier. That's a cutting from that. And because this area is fairly shaded in the winter months, but it will more than make up for it this time of year. But this used to just be a dead corner. Now it's filling in with growth and can be a place that is actually, I'm just intending it to produce beauty, but it could be a place that produces food. Like this whole area here. I'm going to make a video here and put it on the channel where I show this area roughly 2 years ago, and then fast forward to what it is now, just to illustrate the point of what you can do with an edge space if you just give it a little bit of time and take a concerted approach. This wasn't overnight. This happened over the course of 2 years. Everything you see here is just mostly just cuttings and things grown from seeds. The soil was not improved in any great way, other than I've just been doing chop and drop like crazy. That's why as much as I can. See back in here, look, there's a longan tree growing out of the chop and drop. So a lot of nutrient return. And I have been showering the area with the organic, which is known as bunny manure gold. It's right out of my bunnies. They're producing it right now. Good bunny manure gold. Pineapple growing is continuing to go very well as well. No pineapples yet, but I am very optimistic we're going to get pineapples out of this. This is the way to grow pineapples, in my opinion. Uh-oh. earthquake. Yeah, my gimbal just ran out of batteries. We ran this stream so long, we went beyond the gimbal, so you gotta have the shaky camera for the remaining. Looking at my concepts, you know what? I covered every single thing for 66 minutes. That's a lot of minutes. All right, well, thanks for watching the stream. I really appreciate it. Please come back for next Sunday. Check it out. You do a coffee chat stream every Sunday where I give you a backyard and we have a chat. Hope you have a great day. Go out and make the best of what you got. Thanks. Thanks for watching. Eat your backyard.